Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Objectively Dan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. Every week, I have a special. I was like,
it's easy to forget since, you know, if you added up all the time that the ACAs existed and just banked on who was president at any given time,
right,
odds are it would be me.
You were president, and then you weren't president, and then you were president again, and now not president. But you've been serving the atheist community of Austin for a long time. We joked about this last time, like before I was on Atheist Experience a couple weeks ago. And we talked about this before the show. We didn't say it on air, but I did the math. Turns out the first time you were on Atheist Experience, I was in 4th grade. So I don't know. I don't know what that says about you or me or how that should make you feel. But I just thought that should be out there for the world to know. So, take that with
I thought maybe I was just showing up so you could make me feel old.
No, of course not. No, I do have the Cheers background, which is a show that was on before I was born. Right. Just because I thought, I don't know, we were talking about Cheers before the show. We're kind of doing random backgrounds right now, guys. If you have any suggestions for, fun background ideas, please let us know. But yeah, Matt, welcome back. What's up, man? How you been? What's going on?
I'm all right. Thanks for having me on. I'm fully vaccinated. I have health care again, so I'm back to I'm on insulin for my diabetes again, rather than just sitting around with a blood sugar that's way up here and dangerously high. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I got to hug somebody other than my girlfriend or my brother for the first time since like last July. And that was great.
I'm getting my second dose tomorrow. I don't even think I told people when I got my first dose, but I got my second dose tomorrow. I'm really excited about that. Getting the Pfizer done. So I'm looking forward to feeling like shit this weekend. We'll see. I got my ear pierced this recently. So that's a thing now. And we were just talking about whether or not it's the gay side or not, because of like several people have asked me that now. And it's just like, I didn't think that was still a thing. I don't know, but I guess it kind of is.
I don't think it was ever really a thing. I think people made a bunch of stuff up, but yeah.
I don't know. So Matt, it was just kind of funny. I was looking at your Wikipedia article because you're probably one of the only people I know personally that has a Wikipedia article. And I was just thinking, like, I wonder if I edited this, if you would ever even care. Like, would you even see it? Do you ever check your Wikipedia article at all?
So when somebody first created a Wikipedia article on me, and when they linked it to me, I was like, I'm not deserving of a Wikipedia article. What the hell's going on? And so I went over and I looked at it, and it was like, okay, but it kept getting challenged. It's like there's a whole bunch of other people who are like, oh, Matt's not famous enough to have Wikipedia. So it'd get taken down and get put back. And then the people who put it back would be like, here's a newspaper article, here's a TV show, here's a credit here, credit. And eventually it overcame all that, but I didn't pay any attention. And then there's a group of individuals working within the secular community that at an entirely volunteer basis ran around to social media and to Wikipedia and redid everybody's page. And so they contacted me. They tried to verify as much information as they could. And so they did a complete revamp of my Wikipedia page. And this is probably 6 or 7 years ago, I think. And I went over and looked at it then. I don't think I've been back because I don't bother checking it for accuracy. Hell, I'm not sure I know what's accurate.
Right. Well, what I was thinking was like, I've known you for, 4 years now. It's been a little bit. If I'm a credible enough source, I could say something about you right now on this show, and that somebody could link this video as a source. I could say like, Matt only wears purple and green socks. I happen to know that as a fact. And then we could put it on there. And then I'm wondering how many years it would take before somebody would shut that down. Because who really knows, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever show your feet on camera? Is that a thing you do on your streams? I don't know.
I can't answer that question. It could cost extra for me to show my feet on camera.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
It's on my OnlyFans.
Okay, gotcha. I'm not a subscriber. I don't know.
Clearly.
Yeah, we'll see.
There's only 2.
Really?
I don't even have an OnlyFans. I'm just.
Oh, okay. Well, you should though. Why not? What about TikTok?
No, although I'm hearing people are contacting me all the time saying you should get on TikTok, and I'm like, why? And they're like, because you're already a big deal on TikTok. Evidently, people are taking old clips from Atheist Experience and post them on TikTok, and I'm like, okay, but if these people are getting rich off what I did and I'm not making any money, I should maybe jump in on it. I'm going to monetize my YouTube channel. And that's happening for the first time ever. Because YouTube is going to monetize it whether I want to or not. So I'm going to do it so I get the money. Yeah. I also got approved to do a Cameo because people kept asking. They're like, hey, if you were on Cameo, I could send you $5 or something and you could say happy birthday to my mom. And I'm like, okay, I like paying my bills. I like having health care. I'll say happy birthday to whoever you want.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Happy birthday, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, Ben's a big fan of the show. He's gonna love that.
I'm sure.
Honestly. Yeah. No, like I've thought about, because people told me I should do TikTok too. I actually have one. And there's like 2 videos on there, and they're not very good. They're just me responding to some stuff. But every time I get on TikTok, I just get really upset because I just see the most stupid bullshit on there, and there's so much on there. I don't know. It's not like YouTube, because YouTube, you have to click on it and at least like to watch it. But TikTok, it's just a never ending feed of stuff. And apparently I just hit all the right, algorithm, hits, I guess, for just dumb stuff. I don't know.
It's not because I'm old and don't get it. I have never looked at TikTok, despite the fact that, and I don't really use my Instagram much, but I'm live on Twitch quite frequently. Hell, I was live today. I was live yesterday. I'll probably I won't be live tomorrow, but I'll be live on Monday. I do, a lot of different platforms. It's like TikTok didn't hit me as the one extra I needed to add. So
it is the next thing. And now the next thing is the hot tub meta on Twitch and stuff. So I know you have a hot tub.
I do.
So you can compete in the hot tub meta.
I would. Somebody asked me about it yesterday, and I'm like, yes, when the new laptop, I've returned 4 laptops for technical issues in the last month. So when the new laptop finally arrives and gets set up, I will put it out on the back porch. Yeah. I will jump in the hot tub and I will stream me running Isaac, but I won't break Twitch's terms of service. So I'll actually have clothing on, but I'll do a hot tub thing.
That's great. There you go, man. That's awesome. Well, folks, a real quick announcement on my side. I am moving next week. Woohoo! Yay! Fun stuff. I'm not going to be here to do a show though, so Puck is going to be back for that. So look forward to that. Awesome. But we're going to do a different setup here as well. Obviously, I'm going to be set up in this new place. So look forward to that. And also just want to remind you guys, this is a call-in show. Maybe you're tuning in for the first time. Maybe you like Matt and you see his other stuff. If you're new, welcome. Come call in. We have some open lines here, and we want to talk to you guys. This is Truth Wanted. We talk about what people believe and why. If you've seen Atheist Experience, it's kind of like that. Actually, I was on Atheist Experience a couple weeks ago. Some of you probably have watched me because of that Atheist Experience spot. So if you are, then hey, well, welcome. I hope you've been enjoying the past couple of weeks.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah. What's up?
Can I give you a tip?
Give me a tip. What's up?
You probably don't want to reach out to people saying, maybe you really like Matt and you want to call in. What you want to do is reach out. Maybe you guys hate Matt. Maybe maybe you couldn't, he hung up on you on Atheist Experience, but now Dan's in control of the show.
That's right. That's so right. You're in my world now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you have some things you want to say to Matt and your restraining order prevents you from getting anywhere close to him, then this is a chance to call him, because, international lines, doesn't really work there. But anyway, yeah, definitely come call into the show. So I was watching, I don't usually do this, Matt, but I was watching some chess stuff this past weekend because somebody was telling me about this big chess tournament and stuff. And I know you're when I think of people who play chess, you're like the number one person in my life. I think
I'm not good, but I'm not horrible, but I love to play and I am a junkie.
So you have to explain to me like how, because I don't, so there's a whole new like community of chess online kind of like shit talking and stuff. There's like a lot of drama and stuff in the chess community. It's a whole other world to me. I don't really understand it. Do people really get that into it? People get heated?
Oh yeah. I mean, right now, no, it won't make a lot of sense. Right now, Magnus Carlsen is world champion, and they just had basically the candidates tournament to figure out who is going to be his next competitor. And a guy whose name I'll get wrong, but we'll just call him Nepo because that's the short version of his last name, won that, and he'll be challenging Carlsen for world championship. There are serious grandmaster chess players who play in tournaments, and some of them are actually also serious players online. Chess is pretty big on like Twitch, and not just where you have like, I mean, I don't want to trash anybody. I love tons of streamers, Eric Rosen, John Bartholomew, Ginger GM, Ben Feingold, Nakamura, Gotham Chess, Botez Sisters. And it's not, when I say Botez Sisters, by the way, they do a little bit more than chess as well, but I love their chess stuff as well. Agadmator on YouTube. Chess is a big deal. The most recent drama that I heard about was something between Hikaru Nakamura and Chess Bra, whose name I forget, and I apologize because he's legit, I mean, GM that's amazing. I'm just not remembering it right now. They had beef, and somebody filed a copyright strike against him, and that turned into, you know, a bunch of back and forth. But there are chess streamers. I mean, Hikaru is on a team. He's one of the most popular, if not the most popular chess streamer, at least on Twitch, if not elsewhere. But there's great opportunities to learn and not just watch. I mostly play Bullet and a little bit of Blitz, and I don't have time to study, but I love playing.
But you've streamed it before. I know you've streamed playing chess. But
it's become
how come
you're
not in the tournaments, Matt? How come you're not competing?
Well, that's going to change. So first of all, I don't play well enough to play in any serious tournaments, but there is the PogChamps tournament that is specifically designed for Twitch streamers. My friend David Packman played in it, and basically they take a bunch of Twitch streamers and they give you a serious coach, a grandmaster, IM, or something, and you play in a tournament. I want to play in PogChamps next year, even though I'm not great. I know some of the people who played in it. I watched a lot of it. So yeah, I would play in that because I'd love to have, you know, any of the people I named, and my apologies to the other Eric who I didn't name. Any of them I'd be happy to have coach me and play in PogChamps. I'd love to do that.
Eric Hansen.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, Eric, because Eric is phenomenal. I'm like probably one of the best 4 or 5 online Blitz players I've ever seen. And I apologize for not that he's going to see this, but if he ever does.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Well, obviously lots of chess players are really big into Truth Wanted. You know, it's very famous, you know, cross audience there. Yeah, absolutely. No, really good stuff. I was thinking you were saying PogChamps, and I was thinking of Poggers, like the little circle things.
No, Pog's like Twitch speak for play of the game.
That's the Twitch thing. Yeah. But like, I just don't. I remember seeing those as a kid, but I don't really know. I don't know how that thing works. I know you like collect the little circles, right? And you do something with them.
I was too old for Poggers or whatever. So yeah.
So we're both the wrong. So I was too young and you were too old. So I guess we can't comment on it competently.
That's what happens when you do a show with someone who's been doing shows since you were in fucking 4th grade.
I guess so. I guess that's what happens. I don't know. I just think it's funny. It's a funny, like the idea of that I was sitting in class, like learning how to divide while you were like going off on somebody on the air is like just a really funny mental image. I don't know. But no, it's cool. It's great that you've been doing the call-in game for a while. You know, you like still at it, like still. I don't know. Like, do you ever get tired of it? Do you ever think that like you don't want to do it anymore sometimes, or like, you know, you've been doing it so long? I just wonder, you know.
No, and actually, I'm doing more than ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Granted, I'm doing your show today.
Right.
I do Atheist Experience most Sundays, but we have a great team, and we've added, you know, Dave Warnock to that team, and Mandisa is not a regular co-host, but we're going to be getting her in the mix as much as we can. And there's, you know, great people who I trust, and I don't have to be on every week, but I love it.
Yeah.
So I do Atheist Experience. I do the Hang Up. I'm starting a new show also on the Line Network that is primarily debate focused. Just a 1 hour. Hey, did you think you didn't get a fair shake during the more rapid fire Atheist Experience Hang Up stuff, and you want to have just a one-on-one? I'm doing that. On Sunday, I'm doing Atheist Experience and the Line, and I'm building up a rig so that I can do some of these shows on the road. Since we now know I can do it from anywhere. I mean, the video quality won't be as good as it is here because I've built a studio in my house. I built 2 studios in my house, but
yeah, I think it's cool. Like, I think if you asked people maybe 5-10 years ago, if call-in shows would still be a thing, like in the year 2021, I think most people would say no, but I think like Twitch and just like, streaming services in general have really like boosted the popularity of a lot of these shows. I mean, outside of just, all the Atheist Community of Austin shows, I mean, there's still lots of people doing the format for different reasons. So it's interesting to see how it's still just alive and kicking. I wonder myself too. I'm like, how long am I going to be doing the call-in show thing? When is it not going to be like a viable format anymore? But I don't know. It seems like it's going okay, right?
Yeah. So I don't see any real end to it. Because it's not like people are going to stop believing things that are irrational and unfounded.
Sure.
I got pretty good job security. I don't think the world's going to become, 100% skeptic and free of religion and superstition tomorrow.
There is that. It might be the opposite. And then you might need that job security because there'll be even less of us in the future.
Well, how long have you been doing Truth Wanted?
Since 2018. So about a little over 2 years. Yeah.
So you've already made it past the hurdle. As somebody who's watched people come in a lot, there are some people who come in gung ho. I want to do a show. I want to work on something. And some of them have the skill set to make it work and some don't. But one of the things I've always loved is that the Atheist Community of Austin, between the various shows we have, we're willing to give anybody a shot. And you've been successful. And
in theory.
And well, I mean, also a lot of people will quit. Some people quit after one episode because it's just too hard. And some people quit, later on because life gets in the way and they get distracted or the show's not growing at the rate. There are some people who get into this to get famous on YouTube because that's a thing now. I don't have any interest in that. I never had any interest in being popular or famous. I just wanted to support skepticism, humanism, and atheism and reach out to people. And it's clear that you are the same way, as are most of the people that I know who are involved with ACA stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Yeah, for pretty much all of our, I mean, like I consider this is a volunteer project, and I really like that. And props to you too, man. I mean, you've been doing AXP for such a long time, but like, I've never heard you say like, oh, AXP is like my show,
It's
like,
not.
even though I would argue that most people know the show because of you. I would go as far as to say that. But like, you've never, as long as I've worked with you, at least I've never heard you, I've never given that vibe that like, oh, this is Matt's thing, like it's always been like a group thing. We've always been working with people behind the scenes with making this stuff happen. And like I enjoy being a personality for the ACA. I love it. It's great. But like I always wish that everybody who watches these shows could really come to Austin, not right now, but in the future could come to Austin and really see like, we really are like a whole community down here, like doing this stuff. And there's a lot of people that help make this machine work, these shows work. And I enjoy it. It's great. I'm the same way. I don't care if I get super famous or if I don't get money from this anyway, but like, it's like, I enjoy the work. I don't know. I enjoy feeling like I'm making a difference, and I think I do. And I think you do too. So it's a good feeling. That's enough for me. So it's fun stuff.
I wish people could see it more. So first of all, it wasn't my show when I got there. I am the producer, but we have an executive producer for all of ACA content. So there's someone who can override any decision or almost any decision that I want to make. You can't force me to do a show with somebody I don't want to do it with.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's been that way the whole time. Somebody in chat asked, I don't know any atheist YouTubers who are trying to become famous. I do, but I won't name them.
I was gonna say, I think I do too. But
I bet I could name 4 off the top of my head that both of us know.
But probably.
But that's good, because what it shows is the people who have that as a goal are not reaching the same people that others are reaching.
Yeah.
And but I'm fine if I don't want to poo-poo anybody. I mean, if you're out there doing good work, I want you to make money. I want you to. Let's get as popular as you can because you're doing good work. Yeah. For me, it's about the goal. There's a reason I didn't monetize my personal YouTube channel because I didn't want to seem in any way to be financially benefiting from the work that I'd done volunteer at ACA. The other thing is that as soon as you monetize, there's a perception that you're just in it for the clicks and everything else. And I wanted to have, granted, I was never going to monetize YouTube, but I will now. And I'm okay with it because I donated all of my free time, all of my vacation time, all of my life savings to build a lot of this stuff up.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I make $1 every now and then, I no longer feel guilty about it at all.
Right. Yeah. Like you know, like you said, it's like, I think people should put their best talents forward. You know, like if you're able to like write great blog posts, like definitely do that. Like if you're able to help out in production, like the ACA, you know, always has volunteer opportunities, but even if it's not with us, like if you have other projects that you can do that for, go for it. Like for me, like I am best if you put a camera in front of me and I'll talk in front of a microphone for an hour and a half, I'll do that, you know. And not everybody can do that. I'm glad that that's something I can do for the community and like activism as a whole. But like I always encourage people to figure that out for themselves, what you can do to contribute. And it might not be just one thing, obviously, but there's always more that people can do, even just organizing a Facebook group for people. I mean, like there's always so much more. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. You don't have to, you know, buy a bunch of equipment or, you know, figure out how to make videos and go through that whole production process. Like there's lots of ways to get a voice out there. So yeah.
Yeah. And somebody asked me about that today. They were like, you know, because I was streaming and playing Isaac and somebody donated and that was just for me personally. That has nothing to do with activism. Yeah. They were asking this question of, you know, hey, what can people do if they're not able to donate financially? And I can't say it enough. While the movement definitely needs money because it costs money to do things.
Yes.
There are so many more things that you can do. You first of all, if you don't have a local organization in your area, you can start one. And once you get that in that organization, you need somebody who's going to schedule the meetups, who may offer a venue. Maybe we need someone who has accounting experience to help, you know, to handle the donations that are coming in. Maybe we need someone with legal experience to file paperwork on making us a 501c3 or trademarking our stuff. Maybe we just need someone to show up, set up chairs before an event and take the chairs down. Maybe somebody needs to pick up the food that somebody else paid for. Maybe, I mean, it could be anything. Everybody has something they contribute, including just being a smiling, welcoming face so that you have a community that when people show up, it's not the same 5 dour or giddy white guys with beards patting themselves on the back for not believing in God anymore and trashing whatever thing they feel like trashing that day.
Yep. It's true. It's true. And that's probably my favorite thing about doing things now is, and I've talked about this a lot on the show, but just seeing the growing diversity of people that don't look like you or me doing this stuff, you know, and I really appreciate that now. Like the community is just a really different place than it was, you know, 5-10 years ago, you know, even before I was a part of it, but like you can see it. You can see it if you look at sort of the history, at least of the community online and stuff, right? There's obviously different communities in different places.
People have asked me, you know, hey, how long are you going to do Atheist Experience? Well, I'll do it as long as I feel I'm doing okay, and as long as the ACA thinks I'm doing okay. But I'm working to make sure that if and when I leave the show, whatever's left of the show looks as little like me on the surface as possible. I don't think I need to be followed up by another, you know, cishet white dude, you know, bald with a beard, because that's becoming kind of a stereotype. There was, you know, because we had Ashley and then me, and you know, it's coincidence that I got my hair.
Yeah,
but
it's a good thing I can't grow a beard. That's all I'll say right now. I don't know where this is going to be in a couple of years, but you know, we'll see.
Yeah,
you know,
but yeah, I think we're doing great, and it's one of the things, you know. I know that the Truth Wanted's been your baby, but also, you know, you've had Puck on recently, and this is what happens when the shows start growing.
Yeah,
is let's get as many different faces and names in there, because we want people to recognize that this isn't the same club that it was 20 years ago. Oh yeah, that's why I try to bring in new guests every single week. Like I want to show off all the spectrums of different people that contribute to this community and stuff. And it's been really great doing this. I know, I mean, I can relate to you now in the sense that like, I get why, you know, this is really satisfying doing shows like this and stuff. And so I encourage other people, hey, if you have a voice and you want to put it out there, try YouTube. But hey, YouTube's not the only thing you can do. Let me tell you,
lots of avenues.
Let me tell you, as rewarding as this is, when I go, and you talked about this not being my show, you know, Atheist Experience. When I started going out on the road to do lectures and debates and conventions and stuff, I would hear from people at every single event. Oh my goodness, thank you guys so much for what you do. You know, you saved my life, you changed my life, you changed my mind. And they there were, every time somebody's like, oh, I love your show, I'm remind them, well, it's not mine. I'm the host and producer, but it's ACA's, and I will share what, tell everybody when I get back home. I've been the fortunate one to go out there and, speak. I also made sure that, like Tracy went out and did events with me along with Sarah Hayter and others. I do magic shows on occasion. And I realized that while I love the audience response during a magic show, I love doing magic. I love the response and the feedback from all of that. I also love, and probably love more, the response that I get for doing atheist, humanist, skeptical activism. When I was touring with Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, and we got to London, and there's 3,500 people in this great theater there, and they announce my name, and I walk out on stage, and people are, on their feet and clapping and everything else. It's not like, oh, we love you, you're a celebrity. That is, we really appreciate the work that you've been doing and the impact that it's had. And that's fundamentally different. It's not the same thing. You do a magic show. It's like, oh, you're really good at the magic, and we love, the whatever movie you were in for the celebrities. But when people, man, it's just, I can't say enough good things about how fortunate I've been and how much I appreciate the people who appreciate what you and I and others do. Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel the same way, in the sense that every nice comment I've seen is just like, wow, like that's incredible that you think that this is so awesome. Like when I was first really getting myself involved in the community and meeting like really wonderful names that just do all these kinds of works, and actually developing friendships with some of them, I realized like, oh, all of these people are amazing people. They do awesome stuff, but they're people just like me, and I can do this too. It was a very empowering feeling for the most part. So I wish to give that to other people as well. And want people to know that, hey, like this is an open space. We want more people to share their voices and do what they want. But we are getting close to time here. We're going over time than I usually do for calls. You ready to get some calls here, man? I'm always ready for calls. Yeah, let's do it. We are going to switch to calls then, folks. But before we get to calls, we have to shout out the patron of the week. Every single week, we give a shout out to the patrons on patreon.com/truthwanted. For everybody that donates, but we always shout out one in particular, and this week's patron is going to be on screen here in just a second. Patron of the week this week is Allie K. Thank you, Allie K, for donating. And if you like to donate to Truth Wanted, you can do that. Again, patreon.com/truthwanted. I want to give a special thanks to everybody that donates, but thank you, Allie K, especially this week for doing that. Really appreciate it. And now it's time to get to some calls. You ready for some calls, Matt? I am. All right, let's do it. I'm going to talk to let's talk to Justin, calling in from Alabama this week. Justin, what's up? Hello. Thought I would start the show off with a nice light topic for you guys. Now that I'm reading the call screening, I know that you're joking, but I suspected. Yeah, there's no way this is going to be a light call. Yeah. So bring it on, Justin. I'm glad to have you. Well, so guys, I'm pretty nervous. I know everybody says that, but my first time ever calling the ACA show was last week. I called this show and I spoke with Brenda and Puck, and it was pretty cool. But I got to say, guys, both of you were instrumental in helping me shape my mindset and my outlook on life for the better. And Matt, you taught me a lot about reason, and Dan, your story with Anthony resonated with me. So anyway, I want to get that out of the way. Well, thank you for saying so. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just excited to get to talk to you guys. Anyway, so here's the thing. I was thinking of a topic all week, and I had this fun thing about parallel universes that I will eventually am going to call about, but I thought, no, there's something that's been on my mind, and that something is, so I'm a creator. I write books, I write novels and I'm not trying to self-promote. I'm just saying I write novels on the side. I have a day job, and all of my thoughts about the world seep into my books, of course. And my mom would ask me questions about it, and, where do you get these ideas, and what does that mean? And, really offended because I'm a Southern Baptist. I mean, I'm not, but I grew up Southern Baptist. Sure.
Until I don't know, a few years ago, I get Cosmos of all things by Neil deGrasse Tyson is what actually started the lighting the fire in my head. And then when my mom died from cancer last April, and she was 58, and she was, believing till the day that she went that she did something wrong, and that was why she was dying. And so at the time, I'm trying not to give too much preamble, but I'm trying to, shape the story. But basically at the time, I had a friend that was telling me about Jordan Peterson, and I went down this crazy rabbit hole where I was emotionally at a disadvantage because my mom just died, and I'm listening to this guy who makes you feel things. And I went from being an atheist to being all of a sudden like the most devoted Christian for about 2 months. Until I read the Bible, and then I was like, hold on, what the hell? And then I found Atheist Experience, and then Matt, I found your debate with Jordan, and man, you dismantled that guy's logic better than Sam Harris could do in 4 interviews. So that's all I'll say about that. It just was like, holy shit, like the smoking thing. You can't stop smoking without a mystical experience. I'm like, okay, I got to put this shit down. This guy's, I mean, I like the guy, don't get me wrong, but like, anyway, my point is, I went through a real weird emotional roller coaster over the last year where I went from being like sort of an atheist to like a real Christian to the hardest atheist possible. All the while, my dad's grieving, and he doesn't know it. And I know on the Atheist Experience and the Talk Heathen, and a lot of times the host will say something like, well, how important is it to you to tell them? Like, what is that going to get you? And I get that. And that's why I have not. But here I am going, okay, I think I'm ready to finally tell him, like, it's not so much tell him, it's just stop, like, not telling him. In other words, I can't create the way I want to create if he's going to read it and think, oh my God, he is an atheist. Oh no, it's the end of the world. Well, So right when I'm getting ready to just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to casually just drop it. I'm not so sure I believe in that anymore. Or maybe hit him with some straight epistemology or just whatever. I'm not going to attack him. I'm just not going to keep lying about it.
Yeah.
And then he hits me with, he has cancer now. And like this happened yesterday. And so that's why I was telling you all that about, what my topic was going to be and all that. Like basically it changed everything because I thought, I don't think I could do it now. I don't think I should do it now. And I think, I don't know what you guys think about that, but does that make any sense? I'm a passionate person about what I believe in. So if I'm, I want to be the next like cosmic skeptic or holy Kool-Aid or whatever. It's not that I want to be famous. It's that I want to be the guy that's telling people things that makes them open their mind like I did, and if that's in my writing, that would feel like something that like gives my life a purpose, so to speak, that I would love. But I feel like stilted by the fear of like my dad going, oh my God, I can't believe that,
Yeah. I have some thoughts on this, but
go ahead.
Yeah. I want Matt to speak to this first, and then I want to give my thoughts because I am curious about your response to this, Matt.
Well, I think Justin kind of partially already knows what my response is because he partially addressed it, which is, what's your reason for wanting to tell them? I can appreciate that you would want someone who you love and who loves you to know and appreciate you for who you are. But if you got somebody who's on their deathbed or somebody who's, in a really difficult spot, the question is it the right time, the right place? And I don't know. I like the fact that rather than trying to maybe do what everybody else has done to be the next whoever, that you're doing it through writing, because I don't know that there's enough people doing that. I'd love to see more, and not just like, here's a book, but here are atheist characters on TV shows and in movies and other things that are not speaking like caricature cliches, that are actually doing something to teach in the same way that, I have stuff in my head from Schoolhouse Rock. 3 is a magic number. Yes, indeed. And conjunction junction. And I get it. Those are songs, but also there were characters on TV that made it more okay. Like I said before, I found my way out of religion on my own, and I was, a huge fan of James Randi, who later I became friendly with, and Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller were the ones that made it okay in my head to say, oh, I'm an atheist. And that's because they were just being out atheists. Having characters in stuff can really make things easier on people. When it comes to what you tell your dad, if you're doing it for the right reason, I have no problem with it. But if it's just a way of, I don't want you to die not knowing me, I'm not sure that that's the best reason. But it's not a bad reason,
right?
Because it's nice to have people genuinely know who you are and be okay with it. It's just, if you don't think your dad's going to be okay with it, it could make things really rough. So yeah, I don't envy your position. I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah. So like when I think about this, I think about, my own story here. And I did tell my parents that I was an atheist, and that was really bad. It was like not a great situation when that came out, but I didn't tell them that I was doing this show for a while. And so when that happened, they found out and they watched it on their own. And I didn't get the experience of explaining what this work was and what I was doing to them. And I regret that. I regret that because I didn't get to tell it in my own words and get them to understand exactly what I'm doing here, because I think you can easily get the impression that, oh, I'm just trying to make people not believe in God and become nihilists and, I don't know, tear the world down, I guess, if you want to be uncharitable about it. But like if you're already in a spot where you're sensitive about these things, and especially about someone you love, seeing them do something like this. And keep in mind, I was a Christian for them for, the first 20 or so years of my life. So this is a radical departure for who I was. That was a big part of my identity. And that was shocking to them, and it caused them a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain. And so obviously I know that's something you're considering, but on my end of things, I will say I was really glad when that Band-Aid was finally ripped off, because I felt like I could finally, even if I couldn't really talk about it with them, and I still don't, because it's not really a comfortable subject, but they at least know that about me now. And it's a part of my self-expression. It's a part of who I am, honestly, doing this show and talking about this stuff, because I've been doing it for so long at this point, that if they didn't know that, they wouldn't be knowing a part of me. If your dad wants to be in your life and respects you enough and understands enough about you that, he's going to respect your choices, which I don't know your relationship with him, then I would hope that he would understand that for you and what you're trying to do. But that's a sensitive conversation. And, I obviously, not knowing your entire background, I don't know what that would look like. But I will say for my own part, I'm really glad that I ended up having that conversation. I wish that I could have told them about my show and everything that I do here, but I am glad that I told them that I was an atheist in the first place, because if they didn't know that part, I mean, that's a whole other, can of worms to deal with. And there's that possibility too, that he might see or, know your work, and you don't get the chance to share that with him the way you would want to tell him. So that would be my advice there. But ultimately, it's not something to be ashamed of if you decide not to either. It's definitely understandable. It's your choice whether to give that information to him or not. So.
Right. I thank you both. I mean, I could certainly see, like, especially if because he goes next week to find out exactly how bad it is or whatever. But like, let's say that he's got 6 months. Like, of course, I'm not going to say a word. In fact, what good's that going to do? But he kind of, I grew up with the Pascal's wager kind of mindset from my dad. Like, well, it doesn't hurt to believe it, and why not? And I didn't know what that was at the time, and now I do. But so I don't really know, like, how I think he's just a person who just, like, knows there's a God, but doesn't really, like, too much. I mean, he does have a tattoo of, like, Jesus or something on his. He's one of those guys, and so. But he's not like a in church every Sunday kind of guy. But I hear you. Somebody said to me, like, well, you could just write under a pseudonym, for a while or whatever. But I don't hide it in my novels. I mean, I have, like, I put like an openly gay character in there, and that was kind of a weird thing with my parents. Like, why did you do that? And it's like I was trying to, like, show them. I was trying to openly show them, like, hey, Like, I'm not the person that you raised anymore, really, unfortunately for you guys.
Yeah.
But,
And you know what? Here is something that I found in my interaction that was really interesting. And it was, my parents were mad that I didn't tell them. And that was weird to me because from my perspective, well, of course I was going to tell you because you're going to be mad. But also, like, I guess they felt like, you know, I didn't trust them enough with that information. And that was true. Right. I didn't trust them with that. And I think they were hurt by that because, you know, for my relationship with my parents, I've had a pretty good one for the most part. So like the fact that I was hiding that from them for so long, they, I don't know, they thought that was like almost duplicitous of me, but also I think they felt offended that they couldn't be privy to that because it felt like that they did something wrong. That's something that I remember my mother specifically saying, that she felt like a bad mother. It was like, no, it's not that you're a bad mother, but like, you know, I'm just at a different place in my life right now. And like, it took a whole journey to get where I'm at. And like, unfortunately, if your dad's not already on that path, it's going to be a lot harder for him to understand. So I totally respect your decision either way. But ultimately that's going to be something that only you can decide. And that's nothing that me and Matt can tell you, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's those little comments like, well, I just don't know why God did this. And I don't know why God did this. And I'm like, just biting my tongue. Like, yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense. Does it, Dad?
Yeah. It really doesn't.
Matt.
Yes, sir.
When you mention your mom all the time, it makes me laugh. It makes me think about my mom, who's obviously gone now, but it makes me smile because she sounds just like her. And if she were alive, I would tell her because I could tell her that kind of thing, but she would react the same way yours does. So that's every time you mention, I'm like, it's so funny that Matt Dillahunty's mom, you know, is just like my mom, like in that way, like that just shows you something about certain people just can't change. So, hey, and the only other thing is one of you's too old, one of you's too young, but I'm just right. So they're called talking guys.
I tell you, for years, I didn't talk.
Throw down the thumper, and then however many flip over is like points that you get, I guess. I don't know all the basics, but I was laughing through that because I'm like, oh my God, I remember these things. Hogs.
Yeah.
Anyway. You guys, thank you so much, and I'll let
thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
God, this was
call us back.
Thank you.
Let us know what you decide and how it goes.
I'm a big fan of everything ACA. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'd love to hear that too, Justin. Feel free to, if you don't call in, please write into the show as well. The email for that's truth@atheist-community.org, and it's in the description as well. I'd love to hear what happens with that. But anyway, Matt, you were saying.
No, for years I didn't really talk about my mom on the show, and that was in part because my brother had kind of asked me not to.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, it's not fair. They're not there to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want my mom and dad to be a prop. But we had a bunch of talks, and I'm comfortable, you know, talking about some of it. I don't tell everything about my family, but it's important because people need to know. They have a perception of me and my life. It's like when somebody shows up in my Twitch stream, they're always like, oh my God, I can't believe Matt plays games. And I'm like, I don't understand the mentality of not, as far as I know, everybody plays games. Like, I'm more baffled by people who don't play games. And I've been playing games since freaking Pong. But, you know, my parents and I have a relationship. It is weird and it is not what it used to be, but it's not a bad relationship. We've kind of agreed to set aside, you know, any discussions about the religion thing. And my dad has, on a number of different occasions, told me that he's proud of me. I know that he's not proud of me for being an atheist and hosting an atheist show. What he's proud of me for is being a self-sufficient man.
Yeah.
I make, you know, I haven't relied on them for anything since I left home at 18 to join the Navy, or at least not much. I mean, they've helped me out on occasion. You know, Dad helped me move from Norfolk. So there's still a good relationship here. You never know what I thought it was going to kill them. Like I figured this is going to be the end of my relationship with them. You know, and it's not.
Yeah, I thought the same for mine. And, you know, I feel weird talking about my family on the show too, but I talk about it for kind of similar reasons, I guess, to show that, hey, I'm just a normal person that struggles with family issues just as much as anybody else. And I may not always have the answers to it, but at the same time, I also feel pretty privileged because My relationship with my parents is a very good one. All things considered, I think they have very problematic views, and I will tell them that. But besides that, like I still have a good family relationship with them, and not everybody does when it comes to talking about these issues. And you and I hear about people all the time who have been cut off from their family completely, and still struggle with having that relationship with them. And that's just another reason that motivates me to talk about this stuff, honestly, because like everybody's going to go on their own journey in life and figuring this stuff out. And unfortunately, like people go down paths that you and I would not want to see them go down. But like, I don't know. I don't think being an atheist is the worst thing you can be. I really think there's a lot of worse things you can be, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Like if I listed the top 5,000 things that you could be that are terrible, atheists wouldn't be on the list. It's not a negative, but
it's so anyway, just another reason why we do what we do. But we should get to some more callers here. I'd also point out, I don't think Christian makes that list either. I don't think merely believing something that you don't have a good reason for. There are certainly particular versions of Christianity that are worse than others, and they amplify bad characteristics in people. But I know plenty of Christians who are fine. They're not biblical Christians. They're not pointing to the Bible and saying, "Oh yeah, we should have slaves and women should be subjugated to men and stuff." So definitely. Let's get to another caller here. I want to talk to Johnny, who's calling in from Texas. Johnny, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks.
Big fan of both of y'all. I want to echo what Justin said. Y'all are both very instrumental in my, development, my understanding of epistemology and how to evaluate claims. And I was very into conspiracy thinking and, the New World Order and Illuminati and all that shit. And that really had a hold on me for a lot of years. So I appreciate both of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
Glad it was useful.
So, so my question is, I recently, I'm really into SE. I actually called the show a couple months ago and asked a question about SE. I can't remember what it was, but I like that style of conversation. I feel like it's easy to progress the conversation with that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently had a really good conversation with both my parents, kind of in the same boat as Justin, where, they both do believe. And, every now and then we'll be talking about, my dad's real into science and we both really like astronomy. And so we share, new things that we've learned about astronomy. And every now and then, he'll make a little side statement like, oh, isn't it so great that it just feels like it's so amazing that it, how could it all have happened by accident? Or, feels like there's a designer kind of thing, And anyway, so we had a really good conversation that came out of him making one of those comments. And ultimately his position is, I kind of kept pressing him on it, and he basically said, wherever, like, we can continue to understand everything, right? We can discover more and more about the universe and its beginnings and its workings and all that stuff, but there's always going to be a limit, and behind that limit, that's where God is, right? And so I kind of wanted to get both of y'all's thoughts on how to progress the conversation from there, how to press him a little bit more, because he was kind of but, he kind of explained that he believes in a sort of a deistic type of, universe starter, and then sat back and doesn't interfere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of got stuck with, didn't really know what to ask him, because they both believe in the Christian God. And that was kind of where the conversation ended. We've been talking for 4 or 5 hours,
This kind of a talk. Yeah, this idea of God is it's interesting to me because this was kind of my idea of God for a while. In fact, if you go to my conversation with Anthony, I kind of talk about God sort of in this language. And, a description of this is like the non-overlapping magisteria, which is kind of this idea that there is science, and then there's religion, and you can kind of put a dividing line between the two. And there's just some things that science can answer, and some things about God and religion that just can't be answered by science or can't be explained, by a human understanding, human logic. There's different ways to explain that. But like at the end of the day, if we're talking about God and we're using like the language of logic, if we're saying, oh, this has to be the intent of God, or this is the design of God, then there is a kind of rationality being used there, or there is a kind of observation that's being used there. And that's why this kind of, logic about God doesn't really make sense, because we are ultimately talking about God within a framework of human understanding. Clearly, he's not beyond human understanding. If we're able to attribute certain things about God, there must be some things about God, or at least his work, that we can know about him. So in that sense, it doesn't make sense. And I know that you know that, but it's good to kind of, parse that out a bit. So, but as far as questions I would ask, I would just say, well, if God is beyond our understanding, then how do we know anything about him? Or how do you know that that's his work? Or
I literally just typed, if God begins at the limits of human understanding, how does he understand this?
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically claiming to detect the undetectable, to understand that which cannot be understood. And it's just a fallacy to say that God begins where we don't understand things. That's called God of the gaps.
And that's what I tried to explain. But I think he would just readily admit we can't understand it, right? And his, he tried to equate my position of saying, I base my beliefs on the evidence, and I don't go any further than our current knowledge justifies us going. I don't posit, I don't take that extra step and posit, oh, God is responsible for this, right? But you do, sure. And I'm wondering why you do that. And he's basically saying, well, your position of saying I don't know is equal to my position of saying I think he's there. And I'm like,
is it?
No, I'm trying to explain, yeah. And I'm like, no, it's actually not. And then I try and, I'm like, here's why, because X, Y, and Z, and it was just like a brick wall,
Yeah. It's this is the kind of God that goes like it's what happens when we live in an increasingly kind of postmodern world, and we have more postmodern ideas about God. Not that I'm ragging on postmodernism, but just saying as a culture how we understand religion. Yeah, well, there's different thoughts there about that, but like as and talking about the God concept, right? Like it's easier, the atheist community sometimes is criticized because we talk a lot about fundamentalism and fundamentalist ideas of God. And it's true that there are a lot of Christians who don't really have that idea of God. But the problem is when you talk about these other ideas of God, when it becomes, more and more outside of like the realm of falsifiability, then it just becomes a conversation of like, well, how do we really know anything about this God? And it's a conversation that ultimately goes nowhere. We have all of these assumptions about God and his intentions and his place in the world and his purpose for our lives that we could never possibly demonstrate just based on our own definition of God, that being something that's completely unknowable. So I share your frustration, and the only advice I could suggest is just asking like how they know things about God, how they know about God's intentions in the world, and if they grew up in a different part of the world, and would they understand God differently? Is it possible that their experiences shape what they know about God? And if their personal experiences shape what they know about God, then what does that say about knowing God in general, right? Like I will hear Christians who will say that God is outside of what we can know, and at the same time tell me stories where they've either personally talked to God or God has done something in their lives. So God is working in the physical world. He's doing stuff for us. And again, that's just, it becomes this weird idea about God that we just can't do anything with unless all we can do is kind of ask questions about it. Right. So anyway, Matt, do you have any more thoughts?
Matt said it's a very nebulous. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no, the one thing that stuck out is that, so he says that his position of thinking there is a God out there beyond all of this is equivalent to your saying you don't know. And I would actually just draw that out in a chart, because if the question is there a thinking agent that exists beyond our comprehension? and your answer is, I don't know, and your dad's answer is, I believe there is, then what's the reason for that? Those aren't the same answer.
Yeah.
And if his answer is just, well, it's just the same as I don't know, then what he's really saying is he doesn't know, but he hopes.
Yeah.
And hope is different from I have a good reason to believe this, or I am convinced. So
yeah, and you can play with this too.
Yeah,
you know, I hear a lot of people say that God is. I was just going to say, you hear a lot of people say, well, God is love, right? And that's an interesting one. Maybe your dad would agree with that. And I'd like to posit, well, what if I think God is hate? How would you demonstrate that to be wrong?
Yeah.
I could show you lots of reasons why I could think God is actually hate and not love. And then,
Right.
Maybe that's a good example where you can go down where, using vague adjectives isn't the best way to make claims about God. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful, Johnny. Any last shout outs before we let you go?
No, that's it, man. I was actually super happy. The timing worked out when I called in, just so that I could call in, and I found out that Matt was the guest. So that's really cool to hear both you guys, helping me out with this and your thoughts on it, and just keep doing what you're doing, and you're making a big difference.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you,
Johnny. I appreciate it.
Have a good one. Everybody, this is why I like using the atheist label now, Matt. It's like I don't know what God is anymore. God is just anything. I don't think there's a more nebulous word in the English language than God. I really don't think there is. Maybe love, but
the problem with atheism, which is and theistic non-cognitive,
you got it.
Yeah. All right. Is this essentially it holds that the question itself is meaningless? Well, that's not true. I mean, that's just demonstrably not true. Theological non-cognitivism, this notion that what's true is that there are many different God claims. But if I said, do you believe in Fergal, Burgle, Menergal, you could have an atheism position on, or an agnostic position on, or a non-cognitive position on, because that's a name that I made up, which has no context. I specifically made it up for that purpose, although now it's taken on a life of its own and people want Fergal, Burgle, Menergal t-shirts.
Right.
The truth is that while there are many different God concepts, they are not nonsense and they are not devoid. It's just that this person's God is different from this person's God, is different from this person's God. But in each of them, they're positing a thing that they can describe, which means it's not meaningless. What it is devoid of substance or support.
Yes.
And I don't get too bent out of shape about agnosticism.
No, I gotcha.
Cognitive.
I think that's a good point to think. When I use the term, it's more of a statement, more of a political statement than it is a philosophical belief. It's more of me saying I can't make a blanket statement about God because I don't know what your God is.
Right.
So until you can define that God for me, that's how I use that term.
That is absolutely the right thing. And that's one of the reasons why you and I have a slightly different perspective on this than some people, which is if somebody came up to me on the street and said, hey, do you believe in God? I'd say no. But they'd say, you don't know which God I'm talking about. And my answer is, it doesn't matter. I don't believe in any of them. And so if you tell me that your God is this cup of iced tea, okay, well, I now believe that this cup of iced tea exists. I don't know what your justification is for calling it God. And the fact that we can have that conversation means there's some, even if it's ill-defined, minimal baggage that the God label contains. Because if somebody came up to you and said, this cup of iced tea is Fergal Burgle, you'd be like, that makes no sense. But if they said this is God, you have some concept because there's some minimal concept within the vast human experience.
Because there are people that talk to me and say, well, I think God is the universe, or I think God is love. It's like, okay, well, I think the universe exists. So
I believe in the universe and I believe in love.
I'll let the God claim come up. But to me, I also like the atheist label because it makes people have to look that up usually. And so I'd rather them go look it up so I don't have to explain things. So
that's a fair point.
But anyway, I want to give a quick shout out. Somebody in the chat donated $1,000 anonymously to Truth Wanted. I don't think we've ever gotten a donation that high on this show. So thank you. Whoever just donated $1,000 in the chat. You guys are awesome. I really do appreciate that.
That is outstanding. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And all that money, again, it goes towards Truth Wanted and goes towards all ACA projects, particularly, but it helps show people on the board and people who, make these shows happen, that, hey, Truth Wanted is a show that's worth supporting. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Let's go ahead and get to another caller here. I want to talk to Glenn calling in from Pennsylvania. Glenn, what's going on?
Oh, not too much. How about with you?
Going good. Somebody just donated $1,000. I'm pretty happy about that.
That's awesome.
So how can we help you, Glenn?
Good. Yeah, sure. I wanted to ask Matt that I have often heard him refer to promoting positive atheism, but when you look up the definition, it really means the opposite of what he seems to promote.
Really? So when I joined the atheist community of Austin, the intro for the show included the line, let's see, welcome to the atheist experience, but it included promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. I have changed that language quite a bit to where now I talk about the separation of religion and government. But I asked the question when I first joined the ACA, what do we mean by positive atheism? Because there's two different usages. One, positive atheism would be affirming atheism, which some people might view as strong or hard atheism in the philosophic sense. And the other connotation is putting a positive light on atheism. Which one do you think is the right definition that I'm doing the opposite of?
Well, I just look up the definition, and the first one's what I saw, but I understood that's what you meant. I just wanted to make sure that you were just using it the way that I thought you were, which was the second one.
Well, my argument, because the answer that I got was that we mean both in the ACA. And so when I talk about positive atheism, I both mean representing atheism in a positive sense, which I think the ACA does by, even if things get contentious, it doesn't mean you're not going to bump heads over stuff. It is, hey, we're going to present a positive light. But also, I have no problem defending the notion of strong or hard atheism in the sense that positive atheism, as opposed to not just I don't have a belief in a God, but I actively believe that there aren't any gods. The biggest issue, though, is that the best way to do that is to place the burden of proof where it should be and to point that out. And so if somebody wanted me to say, make a case for the fact that there isn't any God, the first question I have to ask is, okay, which God are we talking about? And this gets back to what Dan and I were just talking about with atheism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can only address the God proposition that a caller is presenting. But if we were talking about like a generic, the God of classical theism, or the God of, there's not one God of Christianity, there's a bunch of different Christian versions of God. But for all of those gods that people think that God exists, that God, you can have a reasonable justification in believing in that God, and that God wants you to know that he exists, I would argue that the argument from divine hiddenness disproves that God and all of those gods kind of clearly. So what I need is for somebody to define a God in such a way that I can argue for why either I don't believe that God exists or I believe that God doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So it's different for different gods.
Yep. And just I know we just had this conversation, but like introducing myself to people with this idea, I do use the atheist thing because when I say I'm an atheist, people do have assumptions about what that means that I don't necessarily attribute to. Right. And so atheism, while Matt has an idea of it and I have an idea of it and other people at the atheist community of Austin of it, they might be similar, but they might be, philosophically distinct in certain ways that gets lost in kind of a general conversations and stuff as well. So until you ask what somebody means by their words, you shouldn't make any assumptions, but
because it's really a huge mistake. And I've talked about this before. I came from a Southern Baptist background and I don't know a lot about Catholicism, but I had family members that were Catholic. I did a video just this past month called Skeptical of Catholicism, touching on this a little bit. But I watch people who were raised Catholic, and so all they know are Catholic doctrines, and they'll sit down and they'll argue with, a Presbyterian and talk about, well, it's just silly of you to believe that the cracker literally turns into the body of Jesus, when it's Catholics that believe that, and not all Catholics, but predominantly as doctrine. Baptists don't believe that at all. It's an absurd thing to believe. But if you go after a Catholic for what a Baptist believes or a Baptist for what a Catholic believes, they get to ignore and dismiss you. So the reason that you don't hear us quite often arguing specifically against the existence of a God is because the first thing we've got to do is establish what God somebody's talking about. And as unfortunate as it is, most of the people who are calling in haven't given this stuff enough thought to even be able to define what they're talking about. And they continually refuse to answer the simplest of questions that would allow us to get to that point. I'll present the argument from divine hiddenness for most gods, and it'll work fine. It's just, if we did it every week, no, there'd be no show.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of be boring, but you know,
I hope that clears it up for you, Glenn.
Yeah. What do you think, Glenn?
Yes, I appreciate it. Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot.
Cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Got that solved. You ever feel like, Matt, when we do these shows, do you ever feel like we're like caseworkers for like a company where like people are coming with their IT issues and we're just solving it for them?
Sometimes there are some complaints that are, sorry, I have to put lotion on my head because it's too sexy. And so I got to tone it down a little bit. No, there are times when it's great to hear complaints, concerns, feedback from people because it lets you know what point wasn't clear. And in my case, where I've done this atheist experience for 16 plus years now, it's always a little surprising to me what isn't clear. Now it's clear for some people and it's not clear for others. But I love having the different conversations, and I love the different shows because the tone and the calls on your show are going to be different than they are on Talk Heathen or Atheist Experience, or definitely different from Secular Sexuality.
Yeah, I think, and I defined atheist when I was a Christian as like someone who like only believed in science. I think that was like the word choice I used because I talked about it in my video with Anthony. I do remember saying that, and I look at that now and I'm like, man, that's quite a definition that I would not use today. But I also didn't actually know really a whole lot of atheists or what that community looked like, and so that was ignorance on my part too. So again, we're talking a lot about reasons why we do this stuff, but like having people actually know somebody with these labels and stuff and having them explain themselves is going to be way more impactful. Because like when you put a face to it, it means something different than just hearing somebody talking shit at a church sermon about what atheists are. So which is, most people's experiences with atheists, at least in the United States, I would wager, or at least a lot of people's experiences.
Yeah. Early on, I remember, I'll keep this short. Sundays at church, people would fill out the visitor's card. And on Mondays, many of the church members would volunteer to go out and visit with the people who dropped off the visitor card. They write down their address. And typically you would go to their home and you'd knock on the door and you say, "Hi, we're from First Baptist Church of Harvest. You're here. You visited us on Sunday and you filled out your visitor card. We just wanted to come by and sit with you." And some of them would invite you in. You'd sit down. You'd talk about what they believed. Mostly you were talking to other believers. But on a few rare occasions, you'd run against some people that were like, "I really don't know what I believe. I just wanted to go visit a church." Mm-hmm. And it never occurred to me growing up that those people were atheists. Because to me, in my head, atheists were evil, Madeline Murray O'Hare. They were trying to destroy God's country. They wanted to, ruin everything, and they were working for Satan. Mm-hmm. That's what an atheist was in my head, not just someone who didn't believe. People who didn't believe were lost. They weren't atheists.
Right. Yes. There was something, that was another thing too. I had this idea, and I'll keep this short too, because we want to get some more calls. But like, I definitely had this idea that if you were an atheist, like there was something emotionally wrong with you. I definitely 100% thought that. And I remember the first time my friend came out to me as atheist in middle school, I assumed it was because he was having trouble with his family at home. And I regret that. I don't know where he's at today. And I wish I could, I don't know if I ever explicitly told him that was my thoughts, but I know that kind of thinking must have had an impact on my friendship with him, because how, our prejudices about people obviously affect our interactions with people. And so obviously, we experience that when we talk about this stuff all the time as open atheists. But like, again, it's just another reason why to, keep a smile on your face when talking about this stuff sometimes, because I'd rather people think nice things about us than continue to, actively discriminate, which is really awful. But we got some more callers here. We should get to those. I want to talk to a previous guest of the show, Rudy-OH baby, calling in tonight. Rudy, what's up?
Hey, not much. How
Rudy!
are you?
Doing good. Rudy,
Hey.
you're going to be on Truth Wanted again pretty soon. So folks should check that out when it
I'm
happens.
so excited.
Yeah.
Rudy, were you on secular sexuality last night?
Not last week, no,
Okay.
unfortunately. But it was.
I need to
topic was
apologize.
great, and I kind of wish that I had been on it.
I need to apologize to everybody who was on secular sexuality because I was sitting around the house and I went live on Twitch, and I don't like to stream while ACA shows are on. And it was like 8:15 and somebody's like, do you know that you just streamed like almost all the way through secular sexuality? And I was like, shit, I would have gone live with that show instead of just playing a game. But
It happens. It happens. I'm sure they'll forgive you. Maybe.
maybe. So what's up, Rudy? What do you want to ask us?
I wanted to keep it fun, keep it lighthearted. Something that I very much associate with your show, Dan, is cryptids.
Yeah, you
know,
do.
Those, like, it's like not quite supernatural, but it's definitely in that realm.
Depends on the cryptid.
And, yeah, I guess it depends on the cryptid.
Mhm.
What's your favorite in the few years you've been doing this show? What's your favorite cryptids that you have heard about? And of course, I'd like to get Matt's opinion too, but I'm sure Dan has more experience hearing about some interesting cryptids.
My favorite cryptid experience is actually off show. It was somebody who said that they wanted to call into the show and never did, that I had correspondence with on Twitter. It was a guy who ran this blog about the deer man. The deer man that lives, I think it's in Albuquerque. No, not Albuquerque. It was in Canada. It was in Alberta, Canada. I got Albuquerque and Alberta mixed up there. But it was in Canada, and this guy ran this whole blog, and he had, I think, pictures that he tried to take on his own experiences trying to find the deer man, and he was like a big believer. And I was like, you know what? We don't hear enough about the deer man. What is the Canadian government trying to hide from us? And I just thought the concept was really funny. I don't know what that looks like. I still don't know. I don't know if it's like a hooved, like bipedal man, or if the head is a deer, or like what that looks like. And I'll never know because he never called into the show, and I was really bummed out about it. But yes, the deer man is probably my favorite thing I've learned about. So if anybody has any information on the deer man, please call in, because I want to know what's up with that.
Call in with proof of the dear man, Dan.
I want to know
when I'm co-hosting the show.
Yes, please do. Anyway, Matt, you got a favorite?
I don't, because I haven't had that many people call in with cryptids specifically. You know, I remember growing up, and the first time I heard about like chupacabra and stuff like that, it was interesting, but I didn't have to deal with any calls. Something that's loosely related, because if we're just talking about not necessarily cryptid as in entities, but as in, you know, pseudoscientific claims. I remember the guy that called into the show to talk about how I could confirm the supernatural realm by taking a mirror and building a wooden frame for it. And you had to use either nails, but not screws, or screws, but not nails. I forget which one. And then you would have to go out and hold it under running water, but tie a rope around your waist and have a friend hold onto the rope. Because when you hold this mirror under running water, it would open a portal to the supernatural realm, and you could get sucked in through the mirror if somebody wasn't. Oh yeah, it's on an episode of Atheist Experience. It is.
What?
I believe the caller's name was Three Eyes, and eventually we stopped letting Three Eyes call in. But yeah, this was his way to prove the supernatural.
Oh, that's so specific.
Very, very testable claim.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, wow.
I love it.
He gave you instructions.
It was very detailed.
It's like the Bloody Mary stuff, except way, way, way more intense, right? Man, that's funny. Rudy, do you have a favorite cryptid?
The Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil is a number 2 for me.
I don't know why. I've just always been like ever since I was a kid, there are certain cryptids that I've just kind of had in the back of my mind. Like if I saw something about them in a TV show, like watching X-Files or some shit like that, I'd be like, oh, this is about the Jersey Devil. And I just knew about it for some reason.
Yeah.
I was an X-Files junkie. I have the first editions of X-Files comic book and some other collectible stuff from X-Files. And I didn't believe any of it, but I loved the show. It was an exercise for me in kind of enjoying my skepticism, but I was still a fundamentalist Christian at the time. I just didn't care about that much. And the Jersey Devil diagrams to me always reminded me, The pictures that I've seen remind me of Pazuzu, which is the demon that's in The Exorcist that you see there.
Yeah.
So look at drawings of Jersey Devil and compare that to Pazuzu, especially the Pazuzu that shows up in, or the statue of Pazuzu that's in The Exorcist.
There you go. I would love for a Christian fundamentalist to try to do an exorcism like live on air, not like in the building with me or anything, but if they could do it over the phone, that would be really interesting. But it hasn't happened yet. We'll see. But anyway, Rudy, we got to get some other callers. Thank you for calling in, and we'll see you on an episode pretty soon here. Have a good one. All right. And what were you going to say, Matt? You had something there.
Oh, I was like, that's because exorcism isn't real.
But, well, yes. I mean, that is the reason why I would want to see it happen. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to let people not try.
Yeah, no. I'd be happy to let somebody try to exorcise the demons out of me if they're convinced that I have them.
Tell you what,
I just don't want to see them do it on somebody who's got a mental health issue where they've decided,
Oh, no. I have very strict parameters for how I want this done. It has to be over the phone, and they can't know where I'm at. So if anything happens afterwards, and you know what, they don't even have to call. They can just do it right now while we're live on air.
I wouldn't want it. I would want, like, if somebody thinks that I have demons in me, I would be happy to sit down and let them come into my home. As long as there are other people there to make sure that they're not going to do anything untoward, and try to perform an exorcism and record the whole thing.
See, the difference between you is I would not be happy if anybody came absolutely near me with any of them, but different strokes for different folks. I'm glad you're willing to go so far for science, Matt. That's great.
I have nothing to be afraid of.
That's true.
Ask me the question, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid. You can toss your holy water at me, and you can, put your cross on my forehead, and I won't burst into flames or freak out.
I don't want anybody splashing any water on me. I'm good. I had enough of that in my baptisms. I don't need any more for exorcisms. But
my baptism was a dunking, not a splattering.
I had the splatter and the dunk. I had both. Ooh. I did the Methodist and the Baptist way, just to be sure. So anyway, let's get to some more callers here as we're getting towards the tail end of the show. But don't forget, folks, we're going to be on the Discord right after the show. Link to that is going to be in the description if you want to hang out with us afterwards. So check that out. But for now, we're going to talk to Evan, who's calling in from Colorado. Evan, what's up?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. What's up, Evan? How can we help?
Hi. So I was wondering what basically your take was on, I would say, like Jungian psychology.
Just in general or anything specific?
Well, more specifically how it's like used in religion and finding like not metaphors, but looking at mythology, looking at it sort of through that lens. And then I see how somebody like Jordan Peterson uses this in arguments somehow to justify a belief in it.
Yeah. So Jungian psychology stuff is interesting in that it's one of those examples of you can provide a lot of explanations for how things work without demonstrating any kind of falsifiability. And I think that's kind of the primary problem with Jungian psychology, from my understanding. I'm not like a scholar on the subject or anything, but all the ideas that I know about it, retroactively interpreting texts through this kind of analysis. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to always have an answer for something if you adopt this framework, and that kind of undermines its ability to really give any kind of meaningful answers. I mean, Jungian psychology is kind of the same thing as like Freudian psychoanalysis. Like it's just there's not a whole lot you can do with it. You just have a lot of assumptions that you can never really demonstrate to be true. And it kind of has its own internal logic to it, which I think is what people find so convincing about it. But it's ultimately kind of, I don't know, it doesn't actually really say anything about how the human mind works on like a physical level. We're not going to get any kinds of, new medications for mental health based on Jungian psychology. Like it's not going to really, I don't think it's really going to help people in a way that we would necessarily want them to. It may provide some sort of sense of answers for people, but like, I don't know I don't know how useful it really is or how much it can really tell us about how humans actually work. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I don't have any expertise in this area, but I've had to look into it several times because I have spoken with Jordan Peterson on stage, and he's a fan of Jung. Now, of course, Jung met with Freud, and basically I view Jung as like Freud 2.0. He just takes it a step further. But for me, it's a lot of pattern recognition and attempt to find meaning in things like dream analysis and stuff like that, where I think the mistake is in assuming that there's necessarily some significant meaning to begin with.
Yeah.
It's like the people who are arguing, oh, well, naturalism doesn't serve as a grounding for, something in reality. Well, you're beginning by assuming that there is a grounding by what you mean that there is a grounding. And that may not be the case. Oh, well, then the world would evolve into chaos. No. My thing is, there's tons of labels one can put on themselves.
Yeah.
When somebody asks, hey, Matt, what's your philosophical label for your epistemology? Well, the closest I've ever been able to come is found-herentism, which is something that Susan Hawk developed, which is a combination of foundationalism and coherentism. It's not perfectly in line with what I think, but it's really close. When you look at like psychoanalysis, what I think is happening, I think Jordan Peterson's way off the deep end. And we exposed some of that when we were sitting on stage. But that doesn't mean that everything that Freud said or Jung said or anything else is wrong or bullshit or whatever. It just means that I don't feel the need to go, oh, I'm a Jungian or I'm opposed to Jungian psychology. Like, I'm a Humean in the sense that David Hume is, for me, the single most important philosopher on epistemology perhaps of all time. And I think that he solved most of those issues. I just don't have that much of an interest in that type of psychoanalysis where we're trying to get into the psyche of someone and find the meaning. I'd rather deal with cognitive behavioral therapy about and skepticism and real interaction with someone, so that tell me what's bothering you and why you think it's bothering you, because whether or not you're right about why it's bothering you is a secondary issue.
Yeah.
But to say, oh, well, this is all because of your mother, or that type of thing that would be kind of Freudian, I think is a gross oversimplification. So
yeah. And if it'd be interesting if I'm not aware of the data, but if Jungian psychotherapy or Jungian psychoanalysis was actually helpful for people, maybe there's an argument there to consider it for, a more practical use for every day. But I don't know if that data exists. But I could be wrong on that particular front. So anyway, Evan, that's our answers on that. You have any thoughts?
No, that's fair. The only thought that I have was pertaining to the idea of a ritual. Is that more inherently human? And because that usually ends up happening in religion, and it's like, have they appropriated this idea of ritual? I don't know.
There have been rituals that are secular in nature. And so in that sense, yeah, I guess you could say that religion might appropriate the idea of human ritual, in that ritual is foundationally just a human idea and not necessarily a religious one. You don't have to have a religious connotation. They could be added after the fact. So maybe in that sense, I would agree with you. But I don't know.
I don't have too much concern with there's a number of different categories of rituals.
Yeah.
If you have to spin around in a circle 3 times before you bowl down the lane, or you're wearing your lucky socks, those types of superstitious rituals are probably a flaw. They're almost always going to be a result of flawed thinking, and in the application of skepticism, critical thinking, expecting evidence to confirm something will get rid of those. But for example, somebody could say, well, Matt, you have a ritual on Sundays. You do the Atheist Experience. Now, granted, I don't do it every Sunday, but I also wake up every morning, or at least try to make it morning. Sometimes it's afternoon. But, I eat every day. Does eating make it a ritual?
Yeah.
I like watching a TV show. I watched every episode of WandaVision, and, is that a ritual? I don't have a problem with rituals until someone takes that ritual and tries to claim that it's more than what it is, which is, now we're getting back to the sort of Jungian thing, which is let's find a pattern. Let's find a significant hidden meaning in here. Let's find something in your past. Why are you doing this ritual? Because sometimes the thing that we might want to call ritual, we're just doing because it's fun.
Yeah.
And is it causing a problem?
The other side of that too, being that, there are people who do find power in rituals. I would argue at the end of the day, there could almost always is a secular explanation for whatever effects that they get from those rituals, right? Like people feeling a sense of peace, or people feeling, whatever they get out of it. I don't think anything supernatural is going on there. At least it hasn't been demonstrated to me. I think there are some people who make the case that, it's the ritual of prayer, or the ritual of laying hands on someone will heal someone, and that's one where it's like, okay, well, we can demonstrate whether that's true or not. But people like Matt is saying, we'll take it a step further and say, well, it's actually something deeper in the human psyche that we have the desire to do rituals because God put us there. Some people will take that route too, which I don't necessarily think that's true.
They can be useful.
So, yeah.
Like I'm a diabetic and I've been monumentally lazy at different times. And so there are certain rituals that I have that keep me from ending up with my blood sugar too high, or putting on unhealthy amounts of weight, even though in the past I had lots and lots. I was more unhealthy then, but there are exercising can be a ritual, and it's something that's good, and it doesn't have to be a hidden meaning.
Yeah, for sure. Evan, that's all the time we got for this call. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I want to try to get to one more call here really quickly before we end tonight's show. I want to talk to John calling in from Texas. John, you're on the air. What's up?
Oh, hello, Dan. Nice to talk to you, man. Thanks for taking my call. Hello, Matt. It's a pleasure to talk to you as well. I'm big fan.
Cool. How can we help you?
Thank you very much.
Well, I just have a question. A while ago, somebody called, and I want to know to refine my my arguments. So I would like to know if the platypus, it is a good argument for evolution.
The platypus,
and if it's
like
not,
an animal.
Why not? Yes.
Whether it's a good argument for like the existence.
Well, the platypus isn't an argument; it's a creature.
Yes, indeed. But it is not like a kind of missing link, because you have poison, you lay eggs, it's a mammal, it's got a little kind of bill and membrane fingers. I just curious because I want to refine my arguments, and I don't want to just like argue with somebody and present that and then just be defeated,
I mean, it's not like we don't have any idea about platypuses whatsoever. It's not like, they're a complete mystery to us. I mean, maybe to us as the layman, because I know I'm not a biologist. I know Matt isn't, but, I know people have talked about the platypus before, but I mean, you can trace certain lineages. I mean, the fact that it has the ability to lay eggs, for example, like that doesn't just come from nowhere. You can trace a lineage to that. Like the fact that like a bunch of animals on Earth can do that thing is a result of evolution. Like it kind of goes both ways. So like, any specifics to the platypus, I couldn't tell you. But just because an animal is very divergent from other animals that currently exist, that doesn't say anything about animals that previously existed on Earth. And I'm willing to bet that there's probably a fossil record that demonstrates some more of the lineage of the platypus that I would know of. But
I think you can make strong arguments for the truth and confirmation of the theory of evolution by means of natural selection, because the platypus is one of only 2 species of monotremes, and both of them are in Australia. And so in much the same way that when Darwin went out and talked about finches and would look at them and their isolation on the islands to show how geographic isolation resulted in different lineages. The fact that we only have 2 monotremes and they're in this area shows how this isolation works. If in fact we had monotremes isolated, or not, instead of being isolated off in Oceania, we'd had them in Africa, all of a sudden you might have seen other changes and more divergent changes.
Yeah.
But we know quite a bit about the platypus, specifically because it's a curious thing, and people look at it like, how could that have evolved? And then scientists go out and they study it and they're like, oh, here's the thing. And here's the explanation. And by the way, this really confirms what we said all along, which is if you isolate a species so that it can't, so that you limit its abilities to interbreed and change and morph, you get things like this. You get weird things.
And convergent evolution is the thing too. This idea that like two different animals from completely different lineages can evolve similar traits to each other in order to survive in their environment. That's a well-known phenomenon in biology as well. And so sometimes people will point that out and say that, oh, these things have to be related in some way or another, but they really don't have to in order to, we have a stronger case with genetics to demonstrate lineage than we would just by two animals having the ability to lay eggs, for example, because the platypus isn't as close to birds or modern birds or reptiles, but it does share some ancient lineage because that's where we see the animals today that can do that. So, I think that's pretty much it, John, unless you had anything else.
Well, thank you very much for your explanation, you and Matt. And I got to tell you, I'm a big fan. And if you don't mind, I have one little more question. Like,
John, we're at the end of the show here, but you know what? I'll give it to you. What's up?
What are we doing here, man? What are we doing?
Make it quick.
And okay, a while ago, I watched one of the episodes of the Atheist Experience, and there was a host with Matt. There, she shows 3 jars model.
Yeah,
that's what got me into my path to know the truth and question my beliefs.
Yep.
And because one was empty, the other one was empty, and the other one had some dices in it. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And I started my curiosity, and I never stopped. Is there any flaw on that model? So maybe I can use that as well, if I may ask.
No, it's a great model. Tracy Harris presented that. It was one of a few things that were incredibly significant during Tracy's time with the show. It's a great model to show that you have basically a jar with dice, a jar that's empty, and a jar with transcendental dice. And the jar that's empty and the one with transcendental dice look exactly the same. How do you tell the difference? And it's an important thing. It's kind of like the beginning of set theory for some people, but it also touches on the subjects of how would you demonstrate? How do you tell the difference between a God that doesn't exist and a God that doesn't reveal himself?
Yep. Very important questions to ask. John, that's all the time we got for today's show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for calling in. And thank you to everybody who has donated and also called into the show tonight. I really appreciate it. But right now, we're going to go into the Discord after show. So don't go away just yet. We're going to go there and hang out for a little bit, answer some more of your questions. But I want to give a special thanks to Matt for being on the show tonight. Matt Dillahunty, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, man. So obviously, I do this for all my guests, but in case people don't know, where can people find you at?
Oh, just go to Linktree and put my name in, and that'll lead you to Twitch and Facebook and everything else. It's quick and easy.
Yeah, and you can always catch them on Sundays as well for our other show here, the Atheist Experience. You might have heard of it on the Atheist Experience Network here, part of the same little crew we got here. So yeah, you can check that out. If you want to follow me, you can do that on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan, and you can subscribe to this channel. It's Truth Wanted on YouTube. You can also go get it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever else you get your podcasts. There's a couple different ways to support the show. You can do it on patreon.com/truthwanted, and you can also do it through our shop. We got some cool stuff in the store there. You should definitely check it out. We got masks still. We got hoodies. We got shirts. Probably going to have masks for a while, folks. I don't know when we'll stop supplying those, but we'll see. So check that out if you haven't already. And there's also a Facebook fan group you should check out as well for Truth Wanted. It is run by fans, and it is really cool. I pop in there sometimes and look and see what you guys are posting. So check that out if you haven't already. And I need also, you can become a member on YouTube as well if you want to donate that way. You get little emojis and stuff for the chat. It's pretty neat. And of course, donating in the chat there is also very much appreciated. And last but never not least, I have to give a special, super awesome shout out to the fantastic crew that helps make this show happen every single week. There's the crew cam. Somebody's I don't know if they're sleeping on the job or dead on the job. I guess they moved, so they're not dead. That's good. And then pouring some liquid.
Is Puck pouring Fanta from a teapot?
I think he was. I think that's what he was doing. I was wondering what that liquid was.
Pretentious, awesome person.
I mean, why not? You know, it's 2021. All of society has breaking down norms for everything, including proper beverage containers. So why not? Anyway, Matt, before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom before we close out tonight's show?
Yeah, don't believe anything I say unless you go check it yourself. Stop getting your medical information from celebrities, including celebrity doctors. And Joe Rogan is a dangerous idiot, but even he acknowledged that after I called him out on it.
Damn. Well, that's quite a send-off. I'm Objectively Dan. This is Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.